As some of you may know, I am a designer, but I also teach. And as much as I do this, I don't do it enough. But next semester, I'm going to be teaching 30 students how to build synthesizers. And it's going to be probably, at least part of it is going to be online. So I'm a bit freaked out from it because I'm used to just seeing people face to face, and now I need to do it online. And that is part of also why I started this YouTube channel, because I felt like I really need to get better at being online. Awkward me. I have a guest in this video. I had a conversation last Friday with Jaap Knevel, who is a brilliant designer that sees detail more than anyone that I know, which is always impressive. You know, when you discover someone sees a lot of detail in things, you know that they're a really good designer. They can understand the detail. Different subject. Jaap is also a teacher, and he was facing this challenge of teaching 30 students in class and translating his designs of courses into the digital space. And he starts right off the bat with saying, you cannot just translate this directly. It's not a direct transition from the physical space to the digital space. You need to use the format in a different way. The format is different, and if you know the term, the format is the message, the medium is the message, then you know what I mean when I'm saying you cannot just say, I'm going to teach my course, or I'm going to transfer this knowledge in the same manner, in the same way. And so we had a conversation. At the beginning, 2 weeks ago, it was over coffee, and then I said, let's stop this conversation now and record it, because I would really want to hear from other teachers, designers, students around the world how they face it, how you guys interact with your own teachers, how you as teachers maybe interact with your students, and if you came up with ideas of improvement, how should we actually do this? It's pretty early. It might be that we've been doing this for a few months and it feels like forever, but it might stay like this for quite some time. So we better make and improve and learn from one another. So we've recorded it. The camera stopped in the middle, but the audio didn't. So excuse me for this 5 minutes, and we're there after 30 minutes where there is no video. But other than that, the content is there, and there is a lot of insight, especially for teachers, but definitely also for students, because we're all in this together. So awkward. And I would want to learn anything I can before September so I can make the most out of my course. So please share your knowledge below, and I'll see you next week with another redesign lesson, design thingy, maybe with a modular synth, maybe something else. I'll surprise you. See you next week. Thanks for watching.
I'm kind of sad that there won't be modular music in the background.
Maybe we'll turn it on later,
Yeah.
so I'll show you how it all works.
Yeah,
This could be maybe the end of this. Why not? But I wanted to just really learn how you do it. My experience with online teaching is very little, to be honest. I always felt like I am doing a lot of stuff online, but I'm not really working with 30 students at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm always working with 4. I only teach graduate students, or mainly graduate students. And I only coach. Sometimes I can maybe give a lecture, but I'm not really into lectures. I really like the connection that you actually get, and the conversation is much more intimate, where you sit with 4 or 6 students and really understand what they have in mind. When you have 30 students in front of you, it's a bit hard to get this engagement. And then thinking about doing this in a Zoom call is, I really don't understand how.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of the fascinating thing, because I don't understand that either. And I think that's I think that assumption, or that's where the questioning is on my part, because I see colleagues, other teachers, trying to replicate sort of that experience
Right.
of having a conversation with a student, lecturing or giving assignments, and sort of replicating that one-to-one in a Zoom environment or a video call environment.
Yeah.
And that is something that I am very critical of, because I don't think that that's the right approach. Or maybe it does. Maybe that is the right approach. Maybe it works. But I want to question that in principle, because it's sort of it is like porting. It's like porting the classroom to a digital environment, and I think that's something that we should question. I think that environment needs to change or adapt, or at least we need to start with, okay, this is now a different environment. There are different rules. There are different technical difficulties, or sort of difficult, or not difficult, but there are different. It's a different environment, and we should start from that, and then think of, okay, how can we sort of build up the classroom from there, and not just port it over.
Would you say that it's like I remember that I learned how to design books and posters and visual identities, and then when I moved to building websites, I was like, I basically took all the principles that I know, because I was like, that's designing a composition. What is the difference? But then you realize that it doesn't really work.
Absolutely.
It's like the medium is the message.
Yeah.
So it's
why have pages on a website?
Yeah.
When it's endless.
Yeah.
Why have pages? Because we're used to having pages. Like we're used to the physical constraints of a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And it doesn't apply to websites. So it's absolutely the same.
So you feel like it's basically the same thing with teaching. If you're trying to replicate what you have now in the physical space, it just doesn't work.
Absolutely.
You need to really understand what are the pros and cons of this new format, this new way of doing things, and how to, like, what I'm curious is, what do you really feel like is the benefit of doing things online?
It's a difficult question, because my experience is based on physical teaching, or classroom teaching. But when I think of the benefit for myself, when I look at YouTube tutorials, or when I follow online courses, is that I can follow anything that's available. Like, there is no physical constraint. I can go on YouTube and find classes from, I don't know, MIT or Stanford or foreign schools, and have it just translated, and I think it's mainly the physical distance. So I can watch it whenever I want. I can have classes in the evening and do something else during the day. I can have full control over when I want to have my class. I think that's really the benefit, and that's almost more talking about sort of the medium of YouTube, or what YouTube did to teaching, and really the introduction of sort of video tutorials and those kinds of things. And now there are things like Masterclass and these big sort of platforms, or it's not really a platform, but these big services. Yeah, exactly. So for me, that's really the benefit. I can go online and follow any kind of course that I want from any place in the world, basically, that provides online courses, and do it whenever I want.
But that is basically the only benefit. There's no. I mean, what I'm concerned about is the connection that you actually get in the physical space, and there's no way of getting this in the online space.
Yes.
Yes, like there is a way, or.
Well, you're an expat.
Yeah.
So, I assume you have a lot of experience with talking to your family over Skype.
Yeah.
Eventually, you find a way, right?
Yeah, that's true. But it's
you
always...
don't stop video calling.
But it's always an individual thing.
Yes.
So when I sit and talk to 4 people, that is never a problem.
Yeah.
But how do you create a bond, or how do you touch students? Like when you have 30 students, how do you make sure that the ones that are, the quiet side of the class that doesn't really engage with you, how do you get them to react? Like I'm even thinking, I had a course where I just gave there were 8 students and 9 students, and it was just like a workshop of 3 weeks, and I told them, you really need to be expressive with your head when you're like, I want to see, I miss the reaction. I don't really know if you understand what I'm talking about. I found myself all the time like, is this clear? Am I going too nerdy on this? Like, give me some feedback. How do you do it with 30 students?
I think that's the most important question. I mean, technically and sort of conceptually, I can get over all of the constraints of digital teaching or remote teaching or remote education. But that is, I think, the most important question. Because when I'm standing in front of a classroom, I read body language.
Yeah.
I know which students I sort of have to pay extra attention to.
Yeah.
And that is, I haven't found a way yet to do that, because it doesn't work for me in a Zoom call or in a Skype call. It doesn't work. And
so what do you do?
Until now, I try to at least limit the amount of time I have in like group calls.
Okay.
So far, what works for me is that all of the stuff I usually do in a group, I pre-record. I make that sort of a YouTube video or a video that they can watch.
So the lecture side,
yes,
is basically, I'm just making a video of this. Watch it whenever.
The lecture side becomes all nonlinear, and then I spend my time on doing one-on-one. So either they can write me, students can write me, or they can call me, and the only video calls I'm doing are one-on-one, or when there's groups, maybe 3 or 4, but not more than 4, because it doesn't work for me.
Right.
If I do one-on-one, that feels like a sort of a safe environment that I can have a conversation with the student. So I try to, as much as I can, the time that I have, make everything that can be nonlinear, or sort of take that out and reserve as much time.
What do
as
you
I
mean
have.
by that? By nonlinear?
I
mean, I'm thinking about a website. A website is nonlinear.
Yeah, I mean that they can watch it whenever they want.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is no you start at 11, from 11 to 12 you do this, from 12 to.
Right. In that sense, yeah, I get it.
Maybe nonlinear is not the right word for that.
But now when you broke it like this, I was like, okay, this is basically how the lesson, like the complete lesson of like 2.5 hours was working. So now you're basically taking one piece of it and putting it aside. You also mentioned something about Livestream.
Yes.
Was it? What's the thing with that?
That's something that I just tried. And it's also, again, a way to sort of get the group calls out of the equation. Mm-hmm. So I do a course in graphic design. Yeah. And it's very sort of traditional format. So students get an assignment, they do the assignment, and then we evaluate the assignment. And
is it like a long assignment? Like how long?
It's one assignment per week. Okay. So the course is one lesson every week. Okay. 3 hours. And so what I did was I live streamed my class. So instead of lecturing in front of a Zoom grid, I lecture in front of my computer on YouTube. Yeah. I live stream the class. Students watch. So there is a fixed time. Yeah. We meet at 11. I do my lecture. Students can comment, but they only can write. So there is So the dynamic sort of changes because I'm talking, they cannot talk back,
Yeah.
or they can talk back, but they can't interrupt me.
But that's really interesting because it's sort of like taking the same idea of making a film, making a video, and sending it to them.
Yeah.
But like you could actually see this live,
Yes.
and then and also react, but only in writing. And if you have any questions afterwards, I mean, we are having the same sessions
Yeah.
afterwards as like in groups of 4.
Yeah. Well, it's like a hybrid thing
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they
it's a
can
hybrid thing.
because I leave it up to the students to decide whether they want it real time or not.
Yeah.
So they can join me real time. I start at 11 until 12:30 or something.
Yeah.
They can join in the conversation, or they can ask
Just
questions,
watch it later.
or they can just watch it later because when the live stream is finished, it just becomes a video. So I leave it up to them. Some like to be there. Some like it, like to watch it later.
And do you stream it to a couple of platforms or only on Twitch?
So far, I tried YouTube and Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer YouTube because it's the platform that all my students know,
Yeah.
and they know how it works. Twitch, they associate it more with gaming,
Yeah.
or gaming related videos.
Mm-hmm.
And well, the benefit of Twitch is that they have their sort of streaming environment is much more I have a lot more options. I don't understand this whole software thing of live streaming games. Like I'm not into that. On YouTube I can just video myself. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
With Twitch, or the software that Twitch has,
Mm-hmm.
I can do like a basic sort of TV control room setup. So I have my own video, and then I can switch to like a screen with some text, or I can record my screen and use that as a video and put myself over it as like a little picture-in-picture.
And
view.
you do it live.
Yes.
So you don't really need to edit it. You just press a button and then you show this screen. You show a presentation or you show how you work in InDesign or whatever.
Yeah.
And
you can pre set some things. So you have like some shortcuts to I don't know. This key is just myself. This key is my screen, and then you can switch between.
Would you say that this is easier to do than making a video?
It's a hell of a lot less work,
right,
than making a video. At least in my experience.
It seems like you're actually doing it live.
Yeah.
And there's no editing. There's nothing afterwards. Just like this is how long is a lesson like this or a lecture?
I usually split my class, or I put breaks in my class so that there are like stretches of 1 hour maximum. So a lecture that I do would be max 1 hour.
Yeah. And would it be the same thing if you would be in class?
Yes. Yeah. It's exactly the same. I mean, in class it's also live. I demo stuff.
Yeah.
I show stuff on my screen.
Yeah.
I mirror my screen to some kind of projector that I have. So it's like the same. It's more like porting.
Yeah.
Only it's an online environment, not a classroom.
Yeah.
With the difference being that in the classroom, students can interrupt me. Or they can raise their hand. I mean, the nice.
And in Zoom, did you feel like people, like students, interact with you in that way?
Well, yeah, of course, and also on YouTube they have a chat.
So yeah, but with the chat it's different room, because then.
But it's well, I don't know. I'm thinking now it's different, but maybe it isn't, because in class when someone raises their hand or asks a question, I can say, wait a second, and I'll get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like that. When I'm streaming and I have a chat window open and questions come in, that in the back of my mind I can think like, oh yeah, I get the question and I know I'll get back to that in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just mention in the stream like, hey, Roey, thanks for the question. I'll get back to that in a bit. I can just finish my sentence and then get back to the question. But I now I'm thinking of it, it's not much different from the actual classroom. The dynamic is pretty much the same.
Yeah, but the fact that it is recorded allows more flexibility, because students don't really have to attend the lecture, but they can see it as if they were there.
Yes. Yeah.
The only thing is they won't be able to. I mean, I think from the perspective of a student, now they are more flexible with their time,
Yeah.
and they can just be like, okay, I can't attend, but I don't really have that many questions anyway, so I can just watch it later if I
Yeah.
want.
Exactly.
Did you ever feel like you could just skip the whole lecture thing and just use content from the web? Just like you said, you have like an MIT course. Why not just give them the MIT lecture and do only the coaching?
That's a great suggestion. Well, I think that's
We're doing that now in MIT
yeah.
course.
Well, I think it's an interesting question because it was something that we just talked about over coffee. What is left for me to do when I can just send them YouTube videos, and there isn't much difference from either watching my YouTube videos or other videos. And I think the only thing that's different is that they trust me, or I hope they trust me. You know, they know me.
Yes.
And they
there's
have
a huge value in this.
Yeah.
You're basically, you are a coach.
Yes.
In that sense, you are a professional designer that has been working for years now in the industry, understands a lot of things that you can. The way I see it, your role is to, or the role of a coach is to make sure that they fail the right way.
Right.
Like, you can fail and you can fail. And if you're now spending, like, you're making a mistake that would be devastating for you, then you could actually waste a lot of time and not really learn much from it. But if you have a good coach, they will find a way to make sure that you're failing small.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually fail more.
And you're talking about the perspective of the student.
I'm talking about the perspective of the student and the role of the teacher in a space where you could actually just give them an MIT course.
Right. Yes.
And I wouldn't say that you should feel redundant in that sense, because what you're giving them, the MIT course cannot give them.
Right.
You're giving them this feedback moment where they can ask questions and they can brainstorm with you and they can ask those specific questions that they cannot get in, from a video.
Right. And even besides from that, I think that it's mostly about sort of the, professionalism of the teacher, that I know the students that are in my class. If I teach a class in first year, then it's different because most of the students I don't know. But if I teach a class in third year or fourth year,
Mm-hmm.
I know the students. I know what they're interested in. I know their work. I know the sort of pacing that they're comfortable with. I know the language that they're comfortable with. So I would hope that I adapt my course to them.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think it's the benefit of me teaching versus someone else teaching is still there because I know them.
Yeah.
And any other course online is pretty anonymous in that sense. It's generic.
Do you change the assignment because it's online?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I can do things like everybody visit a place.
What do you mean?
Well, everybody visit a physical location. Like we're not in a school building, so I can just ask them like, hey, for the next assignment, go outside, visit some location, and I don't know, do some drawing, like draw something that you find outside.
Yeah, but you could do that.
Yeah, you could do it in the classroom. Yeah,
you could
that's
just
right.
ask them to like the homework is to go and draw something outside.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But like, do you feel what you said that was I found interesting was that because you know them, you sort of cater to them. You design something for them.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if now when it is online, there is a way to expand on that, to make things that are a bit more individual.
I would hope so, but I feel like it's the opposite. I feel like my classes are getting more generic because I feel less of a personal connection to them.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good point. Like I would expect them to be more sort of individualistic, if that's the right word.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like they're getting more generic because I'm watching myself. And again, I don't have that body language. I don't have.
Yeah.
So.
But you say that when you work with a student, you work with small groups, just like you would in class.
Yeah.
So in that sense, you do still see the reaction. You see the body. I mean, half body language.
Virtual body language.
Virtual body language.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it should be like a brainstorm to think how to create experiences that are more than just that, like to avoid the situation of making it generic.
Yeah.
Like it feels to me like, okay, so first thing first, there's an obvious, or at least the way I understand it now, there's an obvious benefit of ditching Zoom for Twitch
or Skype or Teams or
So like lectures should not be like this because there's a benefit of just having them recorded. Like I would love to even just see it twice. Sometimes a person can be so inspiring that you just want to see it again. You can learn a lot from that. And I can even say that many times when I work with graduate students, when we have a green light presentation somewhere in between that is like really critical moment for them, I always record it way before COVID. Years now. I always record it in audio, ideally in video, because I want them to see this afterwards. I don't want them to write notes when I give them feedback. I want them to look at their presentation and I want them to hear what I had to say at that moment. And then the assignment for the next week is to basically break down the whole feedback and write it down.
Yeah, we do a similar thing, but in audio. So students record their presentation in audio and their feedback.
So in that sense, the first thing to say is like, you shouldn't do lessons of 30 students in one, like you should do live streams. And then when you need to meet the students individually, then you do it in groups. So you give them the feedback in groups. Which can take... Or individually.
If you have time for that.
If you have time for this. But that really depends on the amount of students you have. The biggest challenge still is to make the course a bit more unique for them. And to take it further, like I really feel like there must be a more potential to having online lessons, just because you could actually be yourself in different places.
Right. Like, well, I thought it mostly in the sense of physicality. So, what if instead of talking about this visual style, I mean, in the schools where I teach, it's very difficult to do trips with students to a museum or something, because I'm in between other classes, and if I want to take them to a place, I have to reserve a day for that, and that's difficult. But what if instead I go visit that place and I vlog or something, and I explain what I'm looking at, how I interpret things. So for me, it was mostly in sort of the physicality. I thought about, what if I just move to another place for the duration of my course and see how that sort of
do impacts. It from Japan. That's what you mean. You really want to go to Tokyo again.
Well, now it's a bit difficult, but but what if I do that, and then instead of all these examples that I talk about, I can just show them, and I can go visit that place that inspires me as a designer, and show it to them, and show it.
I think that's really cool.
I mean, obviously there is still a disconnect because it's video. I'm videoing something, and I would much prefer to take them there. But that's sort of a liberty now that I have in remote teaching.
I'm even thinking. So I have this course where we, with a design academy, we build synthesizers.
Yes.
And we did it once where the introduction was just there. And I'm now thinking, why do I need to do the introduction there? I could actually do it here. Even if we can actually meet there in class, it makes much more sense if I explain about synthesis with this beautiful thing. It makes it's much more logical to do it this way. So it's sort of like you're using both formats. You can go and work with them individually or like during the course you can do that, but then you can also do live streams where you explain certain things uh, in digitally,
Yeah.
because it makes more sense.
The classroom is a very arbitrary space in that sense.
Yeah.
If
So
you
the
would,
classroom,
if you would ask me like, or if I would ask you, hey Roey, can you explain me a bit about synthesizers, like modular synths? You wouldn't say, yeah, let's meet in a space like 10 kilometers from here in a box
yeah,
with tables. No, you would say, hey, come to my place and I'll show you.
yeah. And that's crazy because this room is literally 2.5 meters on 2.5 meters.
Yeah.
On 2 meters. Sorry, it's even smaller than this.
So it wouldn't even be possible to invite 30 students here because it wouldn't fit. Yeah.
And the thing is that what I did is I took a few modules and just placed them on this mini box that I have there at the top. And that is, by the way, an IKEA box.
Great.
It's €7.
Nice.
But then I just brought this and I brought it to class.
Yeah.
Which was a hassle and not as fun, engaging, or interesting for students to see, while they could actually be in their own bedroom, just opening the computer with their coffee and just watching me explain about synthesis like this. This could be really, I mean,
of course,
not could be. I'm going to do this. I think this is a really good way of starting of having the introduction about synthesis. Talking about this course, one of the challenges that I know I'm going to be facing is they need to work with electronics, and they need to build things. They need to solder. They need to work with they need to really do hands-on things. And what we did, Arthur and I, he's doing the technical stuff and he has lots of experience with building and hacking and working with electronics. And he would sometimes had to solder for students to make sure, like, I have no idea how to tackle this. Like, I would imagine that the student really needs to show with her phone the soldering point, which actually now reminds me a funny story that my amp did not work one day, and my father is an electrician, and with my phone I showed him the circuit and he was like, touch here and here. Okay, this is the problem, solder here. And he actually solved it. But he had been doing this for the past 50 years. So I think that for him, it's a bit of a, I guess it's possible for him to see stuff like this. But this must be really challenging to do. Did you have any experience with like really physical, I don't know, physical education, physical?
I don't work in a workshop. I think right now you're selling the physical, like the physical quality of a workshop, because
you cannot replace this.
You cannot replace it because not all the students will have like a specialized, I don't know, a saw machine or something. You buy one, you put it in a soldering machine or something.
This will always be something that they have to do in a workshop. That is, I think, one of also the reasons that they go to study product design in a building like the Design Academy, because you have all these tools and workshops you could work with. But with electronics, you don't really need that. You just need
but then again, there's a huge community of woodworking on YouTube, where people build stuff. There's a huge community of electricians or people working with sort of electric circuitry, explaining how to do things, and they found a way. To explain it, and again, the benefit of YouTube still stands. True. You can go back and forth. You can watch it 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. So I think it's more accessible than you might think. If you're used to the workshop as like a physical space, like a centralized space. I think the question more is like, how much sort of access to electronics do the students have? How much access to equipment do they have? Because
hold on.
Just
want to double check. Okay, how long you're not recording?
Otherwise, we just make it a podcast.
No, hold on.
Sure.
Okay, this is probably. Do you have Siri on or Google something?
No, I'm on airplane mode.
Can you just make because I don't have my phone with me.
Yeah.
Just a timer for 25 minutes.
Sure.
Because it can only record 25 minutes, and
Okay.
I should have. I mean, it's probably. I don't think that we missed a lot, and we can just. Have like a black video on this, or like a freeze video, or I don't know what I'm going to put on it. But
Let me put time on.
the audio is what's important.
Yes. 25 minutes.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So we were talking about the
Workshop.
the accessibility they have to electronics.
Yeah. Tools, equipment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's.
But with electronics, it's actually not really a problem because they need to have their own thing. We didn't really have any workshop for electronics.
Right.
They do have a very small workshop for electronics, but now I'm just thinking, if we need to do this online, it's probably going to be Arthur that. I wonder, he's probably going to really enjoy this in that sense because he can just do it from home. He just needs to have a. We need to. No.
And
No, I think
do a live stream, man. Do a live stream.
Yeah, but
because
it's
if you do a live stream, then during the live stream, people can say, "I don't get this. This perspective doesn't work for me. What are you doing?"
Yeah. But one of the things that we wanted to do is to have workshops on certain things, and it varies from like synthesis to electronics to understand the basics in electronics, and then also time management, like doing all sorts of things that's supposed to expand the knowledge of students, and they can actually learn this stuff on their own as well, but this is like, we can actually do it. Because we do have the luxury of like the course, we have a day of 8 hours, so I'm always utilizing the whole day, and even spend more time there because it's a lot of fun, and these students are just ridiculously creative. So,
You mean you work a lot of hours without getting paid?
Leave that. It's not. I mean, when you teach students like this, I don't think you do it. You don't really do it for the money, but that's
But
a pain,
what else? You do it for the love? Because I would say I do it for both.
Yeah, it's true. But that's a different subject. I think that what's interesting is that you take the benefits of the online space and you push it to the boundaries. The whole idea of like obviously making an introduction here is much better if I'm working on synthesis. If Arthur needs to do now an introduction about electronics, it's probably easier for him to do it in his studio, just because. Just even think about it. You can have your own, as a student, you can have your own computer with a large screen looking at a zoomed version of what he's doing when he's now explaining a concept about a capacitor. It makes more sense than looking at him in class. Yeah, I guess he can have.
And he probably has, I don't know, if I look at my studio, I have sort of specialized equipment.
Yeah.
I have my own keyboard.
Yeah.
I have my setup the way I like it. So I'm very comfortable in working there.
Yeah. So in that sense, this is really valuable. And then the only thing that is really missing is the coaching moment. But if you break down your lesson into your class into groups of 4, and you sit with them sort of individually in a group of 4, I really feel like this is very individual, then there is not much of a difference. And the main trick, like the main tricky thing, I think, with electronics would be that they would really need to figure out a way to show their soldering, show the work, like when something isn't working. So the troubleshooting is going to be maybe frustrating for them. And
Yeah.
this is something that we'll need to
And that's
tackle
very
somehow.
difficult. Yeah. I mean, if um, thinking of how do I monitor sort of the progress of the students, because if we are in the classroom and I give them an assignment and I say work on this in the next hour, it's really easy for me to sort of scan the room and think, okay, that's going well. What's happening there.
Yeah.
Maybe I should explain a bit more to this student. That is very difficult in a Zoom environment.
Yeah.
You're not going to ask all the students to film their stuff or report their progress, very detailed. So that is difficult, but I mostly just trust them on it.
Yeah.
Or I try to.
I wondered, did they actually change anything in the assessment?
Well, no, because the assessment is set. The assessment is set beforehand. But I think the main thing that we and this is a course that I taught with other teachers. The main thing we did, and that I'm really happy about, is that instead of presenting physically, so usually they have a setup, they have a screen, or they have their work, and they talk us through it, 10 minutes. I think it's a kind of a traditional art school setup. Instead of that, we asked them to send us a video. So they film themselves whilst explaining their project. They can edit it to show photos of their work, or they can film their work. Cool. and sort of talk through it. And we do that for classes in second, third year. We also do it for graduating students. So instead of having like
just having a video presentation.
Exactly.
How did that work? Did you see interesting, do you think that some students actually had a better presentation because of the video skills?
That's a good question. I wouldn't know because I didn't see them present, of course. But it's for me as a teacher, it's the same benefit as I would imagine a student having with me lecturing digitally, because I can scroll through the video, I can watch it again. If we are in a discussion and we're talking about the work of the student, we can go back and watch specific things. So for me, it was quite natural. And the surprise for me was that the students that put the least effort in filming themselves often have the same quality video as students that have a setup and sit right and film themselves and think about the light, because it doesn't matter. If you just film yourself using your phone and have a good story and practice it and know what you're talking about, then that's the same. So I for me, it's like an equalizer, because it is much easier to focus on the story. I find it easier to assess, in a sense, because I'm less overwhelmed by the 100 models that are in front of me and all of the things that can go wrong in a video presentation or in a physical presentation, and the noise around me. So I find it much easier to focus on the story.
I wonder about the benefit of challenging them to actually make a video.
Mm-hmm.
They are learning from this much more. It's I actually integrated in my last course of where they had to build synthesizers, where the challenge was to have a complete project. You don't know anything about electronics, anything about synthesis, and then at the end you actually have an exhibition. There is a video of your product and professional photographs and a description and everything, as if you really have, not as if they had an exhibition.
Yeah.
And this was huge for me, because when I was a student, it was always just about the concept, just concept. And then you end up at the end of school and you realize that you don't really know how to do the complete journey because you've never done it. You were always focusing just on the concept, and there is a lot of learning in how do I communicate my idea when I'm not even there. When I need to send now a video to someone or just present myself on YouTube. And I bet that this is a lot of learning that they're doing, and they're being challenged on a different aspect, on a different skill that they would normally not really need. I mean, if you think about 20 years ago, they would not really need that skill much. But if I think about now, having the ability to communicate your skills online is not something you should take for granted. It's not like if you studied graphic design or you studied any design or communication skills, you'll be able to make a video to communicate your ideas good.
It's a necessity almost. Yeah.
And by doing this, you're actually sort of, it's like, this is part of the course. You need to be able to present yourself in a video. And I don't know if, even if COVID is now completely gone and we can do everything physically, it would make actually a lot of sense to keep some of these things. Like, even if I need to be, if I can give that lesson now in class in Eindhoven, I'm probably still going to use that idea of doing the introductions in live streams.
Right.
And that idea of having a presentation in video should be just like a mandatory thing. Even if you are giving a presentation, you still need to have a video because this is a different skill that you want to show that you're able to do because the world is digital, or at least 50% of it is digital.
For me, it doesn't really matter whether it's video or audio, or I don't know, they can do a voice message presentation. I mean, the technicalities, I think, is not the most interesting part. I think what I find the most interesting is that they can edit. So instead of
storytelling.
Instead of it being, I'm afraid, or I was afraid a lot, not afraid of, I'm stressed. There's 10 people watching. This is the moment, it has to work. You can try it 10 or 20 times and cut the best parts. And that is then your presentation. So you have more control over the quality, I would say.
Just checking the microphone.
Yeah,
it's good.
Okay. So
we're trying to be very professional. Yes. We look like we know what we're doing now.
Now it's we.
Shit.
No, but there I mean, I think it's all a balance of sort of effort and quality and those kinds of things. I mean, I like it. I like the spontaneousness of doing a presentation in real time. Talk about your project for 10 minutes. And of course you can practice things, and of course you can correct yourself, but a video gives you greater control over that. It also makes it that you probably put a lot more effort into it because editing takes time.
And you can fake things. You can really design your own story, just like you would write something. You don't just send it, you edit it. So obviously it's a different skill. It's a
different skill.
It's a different skill. Way of giving a presentation, a verbal presentation is a challenge, and making a video is a different challenge. Making an audio is a different challenge. But I think that what I'm really taking from all this conversation and brainstorm is, like, obviously I knew when I entered this conversation that there are benefits for both. It was like I'm biased. I'm very much into the digital space, but at the same time, I like the books that I have here like really show that I'm coming from graphic design and I'm really, really into physical things and physical designing stuff for reality. But it was really insightful. I think that idea that we can actually make a lot from the online space is relieving. In a sense. It feels like it's not really a big deal that we can't really see students face to face all the time. Obviously, there are a lot of cons to it, and you need to deal with them. But at the same time, there are also a lot of benefits. And that idea of just doing a live stream instead of a Zoom, like for me, I actually didn't think about this. And I was really concerned about the situation where I need to do Zoom calls. With 30 students, and I'm now kind of like, okay, with this out of the way, And the fact that anyway I would sit with 4 students every time and talk to them individually
Right.
in
Right.
groups, it kind of doesn't really make much of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
We're just getting started with this. I mean, for me, all of this just came out of nowhere, basically. I
Yeah.
wasn't experimenting with remote classes before COVID.
Yeah.
I'm not Terry White. Like, I'm just trying out stuff.
Yeah.
But I think this idea of, yes, there are pros and cons to everything, also to physical classrooms,
Absolutely.
is, I think, a really good way to think about it. And for me, the goal, I want my physical classes in a classroom to be only possible in a physical classroom.
Yeah.
And I look at the same way on my online classes.
Yeah.
I want my remote or online classes to be only possible as remote classes.
Yeah.
That for me is sort of the check to see, does this work?
Yeah,
Because otherwise I'm trying to replicate something, and that's not what I want.
Yeah, it's the same thing with designing anything else. Like when you're designing a book, you want to create something that you cannot really experience in the digital space.
Yeah.
While if you're creating a digital experience, you want to create something that
Absolutely.
can only be experienced in the digital space.
Yeah.
So in that sense, yeah, a designer is a designer. You're just designing now different things.
Absolutely.
Like cool. There's actually like I would want to finish this with a link to another podcast that I'm following of Chris Do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you know The Future with no E. He had just a couple of weeks ago a conversation with a British architect.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot her name, but I'm going to link it below this video, where they were talking about teaching as well. I think it's the Royal College of Art or some other crazy amazing place to study. And she said that the evaluations that they're doing now, they invite like really big people from around the world to assess graduation projects. And
remote.
Remote, because like, you know, you could actually do it. You could invite a colleague of yours from Japan and be like, just, you know, open your computer and sit with us for 2 hours. And the students were like blown away with the opportunity of actually presenting to some of the greatest architects in the world.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of potential to this, and
of course, and I am open to critique in the sense that I have colleagues that are teaching sculpture or like they're very much into the sort of materialistic qualities of design, and that's not possible. No. So I think just being open to the possibilities and respecting the downsides, or at least understanding and respecting the downsides or the things that aren't possible is very important to that. But I think being able to invite anyone in the world to join is a great benefit. I would love that.
Cool, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to
pleasure.
do this. Yeah, let's do a virtual high five.
Yeah.
Bzz.
Sure.
Cool.
Let's